Your opinion? Are you insane? An opinion that's different than what your elders believe in? That is even like negative points.
Yeah, and I can still be all those things because again, pharmacy is what I do. It is not who I am.
Yeah, tell me about your childhood.
My
let's
childhood.
Open that box.
Open that book. Oh my God, do you want me to unpack all that? Oh my God, it's so heavy.
I was like, I've been saying my name wrong this whole time.
And then that was the best I did. Girl, I need that text message to just go away. Now I'm embarrassed. It just needs to not exist ever.
Welcome to the Hey Friends, We Got This podcast, where we share our thoughts on the pharmacy profession, experiences as healthcare provider, and explore our identities as two women of color going after it all.
We met during our entrepreneurial journeys. Our shared interest in becoming business owners and rejecting the traditional roles of pharmacy led to a friendship and now this collaboration. Our shared passion for helping others has given life to this beautiful podcast.
As we share our stories, we hope you laugh, maybe cry, and feel inspired as you get to know us. At the end of the day, friends, we got this.
We got this.
All right, Saley, we finally get to film our first episode. I know we've been dying to do this for so long. What are your thoughts?
Wild. It's wild. It's wild that we are here. Like we are at this phase in this moment. I'm so excited. And I know I say I'm excited a lot. It's because whatever. I'm very excited.
We are excited to really get to dive into this new chapter of our journey. I know, I think the cliche is that everybody and their mothers got a podcast.
Yes.
But maybe everybody and their mother feels like their podcast is special.
Yes.
But I really do feel like our podcast is very special. Part of it is because in the world of pharmacy, you don't typically get to have two people just sharing their regular voices, their regular lives. I feel like everything that I've seen that has pharmacist involvement, hosted by a pharmacist, a lot of it is very professional.
Yes.
Very sometimes very dry, not gonna lie. It's just so stiff sometimes. And I feel like that is the classic stereotypical pharmacist, like
it really is.
That's kind of how the community sees us a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And we really
it's how we see ourselves too,
You think that?
I think like a great degree, like when we think about what the traditional pharmacy podcast is, it's very focused on enriching the mind, helping you grow, like helping you grow, helping you become better, helping you become exceptional, teaching you how to pronounce difficult drugs appropriately, how to spell them correctly, how to dose it correctly, patient safety, patient monitoring.
Technical.
Very right?
Technical. Yeah.
Very. And so to your point, I think what's going to make this super special is that we possess all those skills, but we are also like full people. You know what I mean? Like we possess.
We embrace who we are authentically outside of pharmacy. We know who we are, and and we're not scared to show that off along our abilities to do a lot of the pharmacy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I always like I work with students a lot, and one of the things when I start working with them, I always tell them for interviews, I'm like, pharmacy is what we do. It is not who we are. Like who you are, really, really bond and get to know who that person is so that when you go on your interview, we're really leading with authenticity. And that's what drew me to you, because like I felt that I felt that sense of authenticity. I was like, yo, she is like so comfortable being herself and like so bubbly and so fun. And then I got to talk to you and I was like, oh, like she's everything.
Yeah. Well, there's authenticity for sure. There's me feeling comfortable in my own skin. But I think we both can relate to this, that
100%.
for us to actually go after our dreams, that was actually even harder. Like, I can definitely be authentic. I have my own thoughts, ideas, but to really go after what I want in life, that's not even authenticity. That is like some other mindset. You know what I mean?
It's courage. It's boldness. It's the audacity to want all of it. And I love it for you.
It's that, I think
I love it for you.
You use this one word that I really like. It's unapologetically yourself, which, I, even looking at my journey online, I've been posting on LinkedIn for a whole year. And a lot of that is my own thoughts, my own ideas and opinions. And that is very authentic, but it has taken me a very long time to become more bold, become more unapologetically myself. Stepping away from like, I don't need other people to validate what I'm doing, because I just know what I'm doing is right for me. And it's right for me now. I could change my mind later. Don't force me to like be something that you feel comfortable about. Yes. So that's something that you and I both have.
Cool.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing that we have a lot in common, is that we both had to really overcome that block of,
we really
this is me, and don't ask questions about that,
About that. Like, let's have a discussion about whatever you want to have a discussion about, but how I show up in the world, and how I navigate how I am seen in the world.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing. It's a journey. It's a place I have had to get to, because you hear it a lot. You're extra. Well, I am. I really am extra. And I'm cool with that. Like, I'm really cool with being extra. Like, I'm not extra to be malicious, but I show up and absolutely take up all the space I want to take up. And it took a long time for me to be comfortable with that, and then have the courage to really actually take up the space. It's like, it's one thing where I psych myself up in the mirror, like, you are smart, you are enough, you are beautiful. I can tell myself all these different affirmations, and then I show up in the world and I need to live that out. And that's been a whole journey through, like, and I think, like, there are still moments, this podcast, like, we are shooting our first podcast episode, like, this is a whole moment here. This is a dream deferred for me from like childhood, when I wanted to do journalism and was told, oh, no, that is not what the path is going to be for you. You have to pursue something else. And then podcasting became like a thing, and I had to really figure out and find the courage to actually say, I think I want to enter this medium. I think I want to contribute in this way. It's a lot of work. And I think the point I'm trying to get across is that everybody is on this journey and in different places in this journey to getting to that place of accepting who you are and then living out loud in that form. And my goal is simple. I just want to let everyone out there know that, like, first of all, it's a thing that's obtainable, regardless of what you've built up in your mind about how impossible that is. It's doable. But we are here to tell you about how we've been able to do it and how we're doing it and what we're facing every single day as a result of that. And it's brought me and Thu together. So I don't think that it's a very bad thing.
There's so many questions I have for you. So first of all, who told you that you're too much or too extra?
Oh my God, too many people. Like, I could really make a list that goes as far back as my childhood. Like, my report cards will come home, and even the other day I was telling my mom about this. It would be like very intelligent, but so it's difficult to translate because they would come home in French. You'd be like, très intelligente mais distraite. So it's like really smart, but like a little all over the place, like very energetic, like bouncy, and sometimes even disruptive to the other kids because I finish my work early, right? So I talked about my mom. Like I used to laugh about it with my mom the other day. That's what my report comes. So like, as far as I could remember, the feedback has been that you're smart, but your personality could use some work, like a little bit of taming type thing, you know?
Like taming you a little bit. I feel
Taming me.
I feel like I've experienced that in a way too, where, you know, people, I can't remember like what my earliest memory would be, but in high school, there was definitely a moment where I remember this one girl was like, you're so opinionated. And then as I got into college, I continued to receive a lot of this feedback from my peers of you're very opinionated and you're too loud sometimes, and just even in general. And you mentioned a little bit about your childhood where, you know, being from an immigrant family, there are certain expectations, and culturally, you know, as a woman, as a girl, as a young girl, you're not really supposed to be talking out of terms.
No.
You are supposed to wait for someone to ask for your opinion, and you're not
Or
really allowed to give it.
right,
And
right.
so
Right,
my
right,
whole
right. Or
life,
give you permission to even
yes,
participate in the conversation, let alone
yeah.
give your opinion. Oh my God.
Give
How
your
dare
opinion?
you?
Are you insane? An opinion that's different than what your elders believe in? That is even like negative points, you know?
Yeah. It's like,
Like not
okay, no,
acceptable.
permission revoked.
Exactly. So how are you supposed to grow up in a world where you were told to be quiet your whole life?
Yes.
And then all of a sudden now it's like, well, you need to ask for a raise. You need to negotiate
Yes.
whatever. You need
Oh
to
my
put yourself
gosh.
out there if you want to climb the corporate ladder and all this. It's like I've
Yeah.
never been taught to, I've never been given permission to. I
Yes.
was just told to put my head down, work as hard as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Forget about any crazy dreams that you may have because that's not
Yeah.
going to happen. This is the safest path. You know, that was what we were
Yeah.
taught to do. And
Yes.
not that it has worked out horribly, like not like Saley and I have like have horrible
We're
lives or
complaining.
anything.
We're complaining that someone told us the importance of discipline and hard work. We're complaining.
But
Oh my God.
yes, but at the same time, it's taken us years into adulthood to really identify our own selves and our
Yes.
own dreams, and then
Yes.
taken more years to go after it because it's
Yeah.
been so many years of unlearning and untraining your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So that is kind of a little bit of what our journeys have been, you
Yeah.
know?
It really it's such a beautiful summary, like what you're saying, like this process of unlearning. And then, you know, it's not like for me, I am not disconnected with my community. I still live in a community that is predominantly West African. I'm very social in that community. My husband and I are very integrated in that community. And you still hear things. It's like you're always posting on social media. And the feedback is different. Some people are like, that's awesome. Don't give up on it. Keep posting. I love that you're doing that. No one in our community do that. And then other people are just like, aren't you scared about people who are going to have opinions about what you're doing and they're going to have perceptions about what you're doing? And my thing is, people are going to have perceptions if all I did was to just walk around every day. Like
You have opinions about me right now.
you're passing it on to me as we speak, ma'am. You know, like that's not what guides my decision and say do it because the external feedback is going to be X, Y, and Z. I am not malicious in anything I do. Everything I put it out with the intent that somebody, one person, is going to see it and it's going to speak to them and it's going to trigger them, empower them to literally effectuate their potential. Recognize that there's more out there and it's waiting for you to go after it, because that's taken me a lot of work and a lot of time to think that way and have the courage to actually act that way.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
What about, well, our first episode today is titled The Dynamic Duo.
Yes,
What
we are.
makes us dynamic, do you think?
Let me tell you what makes us dynamic. That unrelentless need and desire to let other people know what it's been like for us so that they may benefit from it. I think that because our approach is not like a very stiff and rigid,
Yeah.
and you're so bubbly, you're so calm. I think like your your voice is so nice and soft and beautiful in how you deliver. And I'm like super rowdy and rambunctious and very different. But somehow we really are very, very much alike.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what makes us dynamic, because we are different. Like our heritage is different, but somehow super similar.
Well, I think you have to be bold and you have to be very vibrant in order to feel comfortable enough to share your voices like this. You know,
Yeah.
it's like I think
Yeah.
when people talk to us or just watch us speak to one another, it's not like a very like, reserve.
Yes.
It's like we're like, ah.
Uh-huh.
I mean, if people can see the kind of conversations we have
I
behind the
know.
scenes, it's like,
And just laughing a lot. Like
yeah.
we laugh a lot. And I love that for us, like life is so hard. And
Yeah.
I'm like, every time we talk, like I walk away feeling so much better.
Oh, me too.
And
I feel very inspired by you,
I
Saley.
feel oh, I'm about to do it. I'm about to do it. I feel super empowered when I talk to you. And because you're the empowered pharmacist,
Yeah.
but I feel like you don't realize like you're also giving off that energy. Like I'm just like, yeah, listen, she makes me feel like all these things,
Oh,
like we can do this. Like
yeah.
we got this.
Yes, we got this. We can do this. I know. I feel like every time I speak to Saley though, and I've seen her, with her Resi Prep uh program, your business, and
Yeah.
just doing so well, and so many people rely on you for so many things, but you've really truly just have stepped out of this traditional pharmacy path that
Mhm.
I've been wanting to even explore. Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is for a while, I was like, well, this is pharmacy. And the next step for me is to be a manager or,
Yeah.
climb that corporate ladder. And I'm like, why am I resisting? And for a very long time, I was like, is it just me? Like, am I just like not good enough to like to do these things, like to care about like all these metrics and like coming to my supervisor and be like, this quarter, these are the things that I've done and I deserve, and I'm like,
Yeah.
why am I not doing that? And I think a lot of it is because I just don't want to. And it's like, but
Yeah.
all I could see was that was the only way. And
Yeah.
you can't believe how stuck and stagnant I felt. I was just like,
Oh,
there's nothing else for me. Like, what is else?
yeah.
What else is there? And
Yeah.
truly had to break out of that box
Mhm.
and seeing what other people are doing. And Saley,
Yeah.
you're doing it. You're a business
Oh,
owner
thank
in
you.
pharmacy. That is not something to think little or lightly of, because
Thank
not a lot of people
you.
are, first of all, even aware that exist, and then
Mm.
to even do it, to
Yeah.
like, I have this idea and I'm just gonna go for it.
Go for it.
Because I'll tell you, when I started writing on LinkedIn and I was telling one of my friends about it, and he was a classmate of mine, um I kind of told him what I'm doing, and I didn't necessarily get any like support necessarily. And then several years later, or maybe a year later, he texted me. He's like, I apologize that I wasn't more supportive of you. That is the
Mm.
kind of thinking
Yeah.
that is in this field that
Field,
I
yeah.
think we're trying to like break out of. Like, it's not
Break
even
out
like stepping
of.
out of, it's not
Mhm.
even whatever. You have to actually crack the
We really
glass
do.
and like
Yes.
get out, because
Out.
there's so much pressure against that kind of
It really
thinking.
is. It
Not to
there
say like
it's
it's
so
something
much.
malicious, it's not that dramatic, but it
It's
feels like that to me.
so and what you first of all, kudos to the friend that looped back around to text you and apologize for the initial response and acknowledge what you were trying to do now. Kudos to them. There are too many people that I ran ideas by that were not supportive, but also didn't provide an alternative and have never circled back. right? I'm forced to believe that that's still your energy to this day, even though I have proof that you were wrong. You were wrong. I have proof. I have proof. But so I just want to give a shout out to friend, unknown friend. Kudos to you, unknown friend. But the other thing that you mentioning about breaking out, it's not stepping out. I think a lot of what we hear is stepping. We have to break out. Like pharmacy is not a new profession. It's a profession with a lot of old traditions. Like these things are
I've rolled
baked
my
in.
eyes.
You know what I mean? Like they are baked in deep into the profession, and how you show up in it is predetermined, predefined. It's very well laid out.
Yeah.
And that is necessary because we are taking care of people. Like quite literally, people's lives are in our hands. But I think two things could really be true at the same time. Like I could be a phenomenal pharmacist that shows up with all those things and still be the next best podcast in this profession. We're claiming it. And still have the most successful match rate anywhere.
Yeah.
Right. And I can still be all those things because, again, pharmacy is what I do. It is not who I am. There should be space in the profession for who I am to be allowed to flourish within the profession. That's my dream. It's my most ambitious dream for anyone who's listening. All of what I will share, and I can assure you that all of what Thu will also share will be focused on like what we've lived and what we've experienced, what we've learned from those things. Hopefully that it encourages you and it inspires you to be a little bit more comfortable and courageous in showing up truly in your truest and most authentic self. Your patients will see the difference. Even the people you work with will see that difference, because when you're being authentic, there's like this real sense of comfort and ease that comes with it, versus when you're showing up in the world every day and performing. And I don't want to perform. I'm bad at performing.
Yeah, it's a lot of mental gymnastics to perform, to try to fit into something that you weren't born to fit in. I want to talk about, I guess, a little bit of your background, because you mentioned a little bit, but I really want to deep dive into this because I think this is where we have a lot of very common shared values. So yeah, tell me about your childhood.
My
Let's
childhood.
open that box.
Open that book. Oh my God. You want me to unpack all that? Oh my God. It's so heavy. Oh man. I mean,
tell it.
So
all.
for me,
Give us
like
every detail.
because Thu and I are going to dive into this really, really deep. But overview of who I am and where I come from. I'm not going to do something corny like my story began in 10,000 BC. I'm not going to do that. When I am originally from Guinea, which is in West Africa. It is a super tiny country on the west coast of Africa. For anyone who doesn't know Africa well, if you know Liberia and you know Guinea-Bissau and Ivory Coast, we are tucked right in there with them. But we were a French colony in Africa, so English is not my first language.
Yes, speak more of that French to us.
Listen, major point of insecurity as I went through pharmacy school and residency, and even now, right? I read a lot because I'm always insecure that when I express myself, am I being received the way I want to be received? And so I read a lot to learn how other people express themselves when they are angry, when they are sad, when they are happy. But English is absolutely not my first language. It is a language that I started learning when I was 13. And now I pretty much dream in English and do everything in English, except I cannot do math in English. That is the only thing I still can't do in English. And my ABCs after D switches to French.
So
isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Weird.
That's
Like once I get to D, then it becomes F, like it becomes something like
so cool.
French, but it cannot continue in English. Which is all part of like the insecurity of like you need to keep working on your reading and writing.
13 years old to learn a new language is actually it's harder. So much harder. Yeah.
I'm past that 6 to 8 year old phase where it's supposed to be like super, super easy, right? But yeah, I am a pharmacist. I did complete a residency and have done inpatient. And in the last 3 years, I've been in the outpatient space in AmCare, specifically in medication management. The population closest to my heart, the heart failure, diabetes, that's the Medicare population, my people, because I am super, super, super passionate about medication access. And I am a kidney disease survivor, a person who's been living with chronic kidney disease now for 23 years. So most of my adult life and how I know who I am and how I show up at work or don't show up at work when I'm not feeling well has been as a uniquely abled individual who's had to do a lot of different things to create workspaces that are safe for me or make choices when workspaces are no longer safe for me as a uniquely abled individual, which I want us to talk about on this podcast because I am not the only pharmacist that is uniquely abled. I personally know several, and we struggle with the same things. Yeah, I am a new mom. I can't describe who I am anymore without talking about that. I am a new mom, and my son is just 7 years old. And
7 years.
Oh God, 7 month old. Oh my God.
I'm new, but I've been doing this for.
Maybe that's like where I wish she was already.
I'm a new mother, but I have a 7-year-old.
But I have a 7-year-old. It's still new.
I mean, yeah.
7 month old who's just now 7 month old, and super passionate.
It's funny that I know how old your son is before you.
Son is super passionate about pharmacy education, more specifically improving the conditions of pharmacy education, making behavioral health and mental health a priority in that space. From school all the way through residency. I don't think people should leave residency super traumatized. I don't think it's necessary. We all have all these horror stories. There's no reason for us to perpetuate that culture. So I speak a lot about that on LinkedIn and trying to connect with students to guide them through that. Something I know Thu is equally passionate and does a lot of work to get more information out there about. That is me. I'm a lot of things. I warned you about that already, but I'm a lot of things, making me complex, but you know, I like it.
That's why we like you, because you're not as simple as it seems. Yeah. I think maybe, it's funny when people think of pharmacy, they always think of a white coat behind the counter. But once you actually get to know the people who are behind the counter, we're not just
one-dimensional.
What you think. Yeah. Hey, you're a
we
pharmacist.
Are just as complicated. We're just as complicated as the patients we're treating,
Yeah, your pharmacist behind the counter could be like an Olympian and you don't know it.
You don't know it. If you like everything you're hearing on this podcast, please check out my other podcast with the Pharmacy Podcast Network. It's called The Road to Match Day. It's the Resi Prep 360 podcast. It's available on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast.
We all have a complex story, but my story is similar to you. I moved to America when I can't remember. Honestly, I'm like, was it 3rd grade? Was it 4th grade? It was one of those. But I was a lot younger. I was in elementary school. So I think I had a much easier time learning English, even though I never fully grasped like the English grammar. So I always need that extra help. You spoke French. So there's a lot of verb
similarities and tenses and stuff.
Tenses. Vietnamese in Vietnam, we don't use tenses. Our sentence structures are different as well. And so in a way that was a bit of a challenge for me. I remember feeling so embarrassed in a way having to go to ESL class, which is
Yes, girl.
English
Oh,
as a
me
second
too.
language
It's
class. Yeah, you felt
okay.
like embarrassed, right? Because like what they would do is you're in a classroom with your other classmates.
Mm-hmm.
They would come into the class and they're like, oh, we need to bring Thu out of the classroom because she needs to go to this special
Other.
class.
Yeah.
And you just feel like everyone's like, oh, where's she going? Where's she going? And you feel so kind of like ashamed to have to go to this
Yeah.
extra
Oh,
class. I
I know
remember
what you're saying.
I remember in middle school, because the kids are so mean in middle school, but they that was when kind of like more of like, oh, where is she going? And I remember in middle school I was already reading like Harry Potter books. I thought my English was already great.
Yeah.
So I remember they're like, okay, like write a story about, here's a bunch of pictures and write a story about it. And I was like, I'm gonna show you my English skills. So I wrote a novel. I was like, I do not belong in this class anymore. And I never went
Oh
back to
my
English as a
God.
second language, those classes. But part of it was because of that embarrassment and that shame of
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, I have to do this extra thing. And so, as you can see, there is that common theme among my whole life of like feeling so different and
Yeah.
feeling just like not like everybody else. And I feel this way to this day. I mean,
Yeah.
I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, which is not a predominantly, there was not a lot of Asian people, very small Asian community, and then even
Mhm.
smaller Vietnamese community. So I
Wow.
didn't grow up with a lot of people near that looked like me, that
Yeah.
sounded like me. In my high school, there were probably like 4 or 5 Asian people
Wow.
total. So I did not get that sense of Asian community growing up. So I was making friends with a lot of people who were different than me, which
Yeah.
there was no problem with that. I love those friendships. Like they were some of the best.
Mhm.
I still talk to them, to this day. I hung
Yeah.
out with somebody yesterday who I knew since I was 13. But that it was part of it is really hard to feel different all the time.
All
Even
the
my
time.
name, right? Like
Yeah.
I pronounce it Thu because on my first day of either third or fourth grade, I can't remember, my teacher stepped in and was like, Thu? And I was like, that must be me. And that's how I've always pronounced my name in America. That's
Okay,
not how you.
wait. Okay, pause. What is the correct pronunciation of your name? We're fixing this today.
No, I mean, I prefer to be called Thu, but the story is that it like the real way of saying it is Anh Thu, which is something that's more difficult to say. So I don't expect people to say that. But I always went by Thu my whole life. And then when I moved to Phoenix, Arizona, where there were more, Asian Americans and more Vietnamese Americans, a lot of the people with my name say two. That sounded like the number two. And I was
Two.
like, I've been saying my name wrong this whole time. You know what I mean? Isn't that such a crazy
Wow.
experience of like
It
thinking your
is.
name is this way and going by that name and then going to a different city and everyone's like two. And I'm like, now I'm having to correct people. I mean, like, actually, I
People.
say Thu, but that's just what I've always gone by. And
Wow.
I'm like, maybe I
That's
should have
so
gone a
interesting. I mean, this is a whole nother episode through.
one
Like,
whole other episode.
no, because the title is What's in a Name? It's
Oh,
I already know what the title is.
Sally's really good with like naming things.
Because my full name, I've never gone by it. And then my ESL teacher, she was like the first person who called me Sally, but I told her the name is really Saleh, but Saleh never stuck. Sally is
Girl.
what went. So what's written, people say Saley, Sally, but it's Sally is fine. I'm not bothered by it, but there are some people like when I tell them it's really Saleh, they're like, no, we're gonna call you Saleh. That's your name. But I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
know if I
But
care, even though maybe I care. I don't know. It's a whole
it's
nother
too
episode.
late. Even if you care, it's almost too late
It's
too,
almost
because
too
half
late.
the people is already calling you Thu, and then some new ones are calling you two. And what
Too.
happens is the two are like, so is it Thu or is it two? Because we want to say it right. And I'm like, oh, I'm so frustrated. Just call me by whatever you want. Just call me T
Yeah.
and
Oh,
be
right,
done
right,
with
right.
it,
Call me T. I'll know you're
Even,
speaking to
but
me.
I swear, even just that name portion of it has haunt me throughout my life. It's just like these things that people who are not immigrants just experience. So
Yeah.
fast forward to not feeling completely like I fit in anywhere. my family and we were thinking about my future. And of course, when you're in an immigrant family, it's usually my family and I making decisions for my future. It's not
Oh
like,
yeah.
what do you want, girl? Like, I don't think I've ever been asked that question ever
Mm.
until more recently.
Yeah.
I never asked myself that. I knew
Mm.
that. And so what happens was that we decided pharmacy was probably a good option for me because I really loved math and science. I loved math and science. I never got the English grammar stuff, but
Yeah.
I got all that.
Absolutely. Let's go.
I
Math and
understood
science
OChem.
girl.
You know what
Yes.
I mean?
Yes.
Understand organic chemistry. I love that stuff. So I was like, all
Yeah.
right, pharmacy is probably the way to go. It makes sense. Didn't want to be a doctor.
Mm.
So I pursued pharmacy and it worked out really well for me.
Yeah.
But I think part of the story that I forgot to mention earlier is that growing up, if I were to reflect back on what I would be doing in my bedroom, I would be making something. I would be creating
Yeah.
something. I would be drawing something. I would be writing
Mm-hmm.
stories.
Mm-hmm.
I would be sewing. I would be making music. I
Yeah.
mean, my brain would not stop. It was just like
Yeah.
make stuff, produce more, create more. Anything
Yeah.
that I see, I'm like, whoa, that's so cool. I wanted to do that. Can you
Yeah.
believe, like, when I was probably in middle school or something, I started making a website. I started dabbling in
What?
website making. I somehow found Photoshop, Adobe Photoshop. My friend and I, we were like playing around with Adobe Photoshop, just teaching ourselves how to do this. The internet was
Wow.
like a new thing and not a lot of
Yes.
information was on it. So, but there were like tutorials and stuff. So we would just teach ourselves. I mean, so that was me
Wow.
naturally doing this on my own. No one told me to. I was doing it
Yeah.
myself. Next thing I know, I'm in pharmacy school and I had to let all of that go because I'm like,
Yeah.
this is my path. This is my career. This is supposed to be the
Yeah.
stable way I'm going to live my life. I get into my first job, which I thought was a dream job. It was a clinical pharmacy physician at a hospital with majority geriatric patients. And I was like, done. I don't need to work anymore. Like, I don't,
Life is made. Life is
life is
made.
made. That's all I need. Unfortunately, unfortunately for me, life just is never that simple.
No.
I do not have the brain of, oh, this is it for the rest of your life. Now you
Yes.
settle down, build roots. It just wasn't right. And
Yeah.
it's like, no matter how much I'm like, I should do this. This is
Yeah.
what my next steps are. Why am I not doing it?
This
It
makes
just,
sense. This makes sense. Like that's the enemy of stepping out. This
tell
makes sense.
me, what do you mean by that?
Like when I feel stuck, the thing that keeps me from pivoting is this makes sense. Like if I sit down and suddenly I'm like, but this makes sense. Why would you go disrupting now? This makes sense. Then I'm stuck in that space longer.
Gotcha.
But
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
the quicker I can
100%.
connect the dot and say, this makes no sense, I'm out. The
It makes no
decision is
sense
so
for
much easier.
you, right? It
Yeah.
makes sense
Yeah.
for like everybody else, maybe,
Else.
or whatever that you think you see, but it doesn't
Yeah.
make sense for you. Yeah,
Oh,
I went through that. So I was in this job for maybe 5, 6 years. And at the beginning of this job, I was like learning new things. I was like a new
yeah.
pharmacist. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, this is so cool. But then
Mhm.
fifth and sixth year was just like, well, I'm kind of doing the same things over and over again. What
Over and
is
over.
out there? What is next?
Yep.
And this was probably the first time I ever had to ask myself because nobody else was asking me this, but
Yeah.
also nobody else was like, nobody else has as much investment in my life as me.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
And
Thu.
I had to ask myself,
Ah,
what do you want? And
yes.
the answer was, I don't know because I've never asked myself this before. I
Yeah.
don't know. And that
Oh
was
man.
a rough period of I don't think I want this, but I also
Right.
don't know what I want. I was like it was like I'm in limbo. Like I'm
Limbo.
floating in the middle of I'm floating in the air, just not sure which direction to go. And it was one
Mm.
of those things where slowly I had to just pick a direction and go and then pivot as needed. But I also
Yeah.
knew that the direction that I was wanting to go was not where everybody else wanted me to go. And I had to make the decision of like,
Yeah.
that's okay,
Oh
and
my
letting go of that.
gosh.
So this is how you found me on this podcast with Saley,
Yeah.
is because I have decided I'm sticking with a path that is not what everybody else thought for
Yeah.
me. And I just have to trust in myself to know
Yes.
that even if this is not the right path, I
Yes.
can get back on track. And if this
Yes.
is the right path, then I'm gonna go for it, you know? But
Yes.
whatever it is, it's like I'm moving somewhere, which is so much
Yes.
better than just floating
Girl.
in this
Yes.
space of nothing. Yeah.
Yes
That
to all
was a
this.
yeah.
I
So
love
that's
all
my
this for you.
story. I
I love all
know.
this. I
Thank
love
you.
all this for you. I love all this for you. Because the hardest thing, I think you've already done that. Realizing that where you are, that's not where you want to be. Destination doesn't always have to be clear. Someone told me that. I can't remember who it was. Someone's like, why does the destination need to be like crystal clear before you begin the journey? You
Yeah.
can just start going and things will come into focus. And which is my problem. And, you know, as we've been putting this together, you could see how detailed I want to be about everything, how everything has to be lined up before we make a move. When in actuality, it's okay that this little piece of it, we don't know yet.
Yeah. I mean, we're
But
recording this episode. We don't know where it's gonna go.
we don't know. We don't know anything right now, but we know that right now we're ready to start working on this and we're passionate about this. We're very excited about this.
Yeah.
And there's no reason in delaying to record the episode when we know that that's the next move and let's do it.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
Right.
It's been a fun journey.
Really
What
has.
do you hope to get out of this podcast, Saley?
My
Like you came
gosh.
to me and you're like, here's my 6 million ideas I had like I received the message at 2 a.m. I don't know what time you wrote it. I
My
don't know.
random, my
Did you just
random 2 a.m. thoughts. It
did
was
you just
like,
wake
I,
up like you're like
yeah.
sleeping and then you're like,
Well, remember, I have a newborn who isn't sleeping through the night yet.
it's true.
So I'm up and I was like, I think that's the move. I think that's what would be really cool. I want her to say no. I don't want to assume that she's not going to do it. I want her to tell me no, I don't want to do it. So I text you that at 2 a.m. because it was on my mind and I finally had the courage to ask.
Wait, why did you think I was gonna say no?
I don't know. People say no all the time for no reason, dude. I don't know.
That's very true.
People say no because it's easy, like no, but when you people say yes, it's like, oh, there's an engagement, there's a commitment now, like we got to work on this, right?
Yeah, but
And I had no idea where you were, if this would be like a pivot that you would welcome. That was the whole thing. Like, I'm there, but I have no idea that you're there. So that's why I was preparing myself. I was like, no, I'm not gonna make this decision for her. I'm gonna make her tell
I'm
me no.
I'm I'm gagged because when I received that message, I was like, "Oh yeah, duh." I mean, of course. I didn't realize that there was this whole like, okay, let's press send. Okay,
There
we're
really
gonna.
was.
I was like, oh, sure, let's do it.
So life lesson, like literally life lesson, don't assume, like really put it out there. Because like this is a perfect example of like how I went through all of the different ways to ask. That's why it was such a weird sentence. Because there was like all this processing of how to put it out there to you. And then that was the best I did. Girl, I need that text
Aw.
message to just go away. It's not embarrassed. It just needs to not exist ever.
No, that's
Like,
part of our history. Just imagine when we're like
oh my
famous.
God.
I'm gonna print it out and I'm gonna frame it. And we're
Post
like,
it.
this is
Like,
the first
never forget.
message. Yes,
Never
never
forget.
forget our humble beginnings.
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
my dreams for this podcast. I wanted to, my dreams are big per usual. Per usual. They're big. You know, I am ferociously ambitious and driven, and I am not apologetic about that. Like, I want this podcast to do exactly, to be what I wanted when I was transitioning, like when I was going from student to new practitioner, from new practitioner to seasoned pharmacist, which is what they call the old folks now. But I somehow am no longer an NPN. I'm like in this other category. That's okay. But I want it to be a place where people that are in pharmacy, not in pharmacy, like you can come, laugh with us, learn from us. I've made so many mistakes. I've made so many mistakes that I hope by sharing here, it can help other people not make the same mistake. But my dreams for this podcast, super simple. It will be the biggest podcast in pharmacy, period. Full stop. End of discussion.
Do you hear
End of
this?
story.
Yeah. No, that's every time you say that to me, though, I need to hear that because sometimes I have a hard time dreaming as big as you do. Not because I don't want it, but because my brain, for some reason, just it can never get there. So I need that constant reminder of like, this will be the greatest thing.
Yes. There's a void. Like, our perspective, first of all, we're different, but really, are we really?
No, I mean, I just brought up like English as a second language, that class, like that ESL class, and you're like, yep, been there, done that. I'm like,
I know exactly what you're saying when you tell me about how awkward it is to be escorted out of the class to go to ESL.
Yeah, why do they have to make it so embarrassing?
You know?
Yeah, it's either like, oh, are they getting in trouble or like something's wrong with them? You know, it's not like these kids are like, yay, bye, see you later.
No.
No.
It's like, oh, you're going to your special class again.
Yes.
You know, and kids are so cruel. Ugh. I know what that is. But yeah. Sorry.
Anyways.
But the biggest podcast.
I love what you say, though. Like, I think that there is a void, too. I want our voices to be out there to really represent the people who feel like nobody else is... They don't have anybody else to like look up to or an example that they can follow. I don't really see a lot of people who look like us in the forefront of pharmacy. I really don't. And I'm not even saying that to be like, I don't know, to make a point or anything, but I remember like not really knowing what an Asian leader and like a female Asian woman leader in pharmacy, what that even looks like.
Yeah. Oh my God.
It's very rare to see that. So I hope that we can fill that void. Yeah.
You're it, Thu.
Yeah, we're doing it. So
You're it.
All right, Saley.
You're gonna have a lot. I'm telling you, your story is not. I think like when we go through stuff, we think it happens to just us. When I was going through residency application and all the challenges and the help I was looking for, when I couldn't find it, I immediately just believed that I'm the only person out here who's struggling to put together a letter of intent that is an accurate representation of my journey. It's not until I started talking to students, working with students, and they're telling about their friends across the country. I was like, oh, no, there are many people out there that have this issue before I stepped into the Resi Prep space, right? And I think that I respect you, I admire you, like, but you know all this stuff already. Like, we're not gonna get super cheesy here, but it's just the fact that I admire your courage. I really like when I saw you posted on LinkedIn, it was like, I admire your courage. I respect what you are trying to do. I think it's brave. And I love that you're doing it right now. And there are people out there that should know who you are and what you're about, that will absolutely benefit from all of the steps that you've taken. They've taken you to unbelievable places. But you would love for that journey to be less traumatic for someone else.
Yes.
Like, less traumatic for someone else. And we will accomplish that because we're already two people that are comfortable with who we are. And we're going to serve it up straight, guys. So be ready. For that.
Yes, exactly. All right. Well, that concludes our first episode, which
oh my God, you just said that.
Our first episode. It feels so, I don't know. It makes me feel warm and fuzzy, you know, the whole feeling.
It really does.
But thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. This episode is available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes. We are looking forward to connecting with you and having you get to know us and all of the different things that we have been through, and hoping that helps you along your journey. If you want to connect with all of us, Thu is on all of your social media platforms, and we will be linking all of the details of where you can connect with each of us individually. And we are so excited that you're here. Follow us on social media and share with everybody you know about the dynamic duo. Rate our
Please rate
podcast
and review the show. This helps us get the word out.
Yes.
Again, like Saley said, if you do enjoy this episode, make sure you subscribe, you follow, you like, you share with your friends. We really want to get this message out to as many people as possible. And definitely don't forget to connect with us. But until next time, don't forget, we got this.
We got this, guys. We got this. We got this.
All right.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.